Coming to you live from Browns headquarters in Berea, Ohio, this is Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Here are your hosts, Beau Bishop and Nathan Zegura.
You ready?
Oh, sure.
All right, you are up.
All right, let's do it live on a Thursday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is Gibby. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, we're just living our best life. It's Thursday. Nick, how do I sound?
Great.
Yeah, no, you sound good.
Okay, wonderful, man.
Sound good.
That's good.
I think you do need to mute our personal Zoom.
Yeah,
there
we go.
Other than that, we're good.
Nick.
Now we're good.
Just running
so
two
Gibby
different
is the big
rooms.
Star of the shows. Gibby's the big star of the show today.
Oh.
He's on the Zoom.
Yeah.
He's got this job. So now you're doing Zegura's job and your own job because you're producing the show.
Yes.
You're booking guests. You've got all these balls in the air at the moment, and it will all be chronicled for those of you who are checking this all out on the stream. You'll be able to watch Gibby manage all of these things.
Yeah. Running back and
fun.
forth. You know, I think I'm good. I think I even lined it up right. Good news, you can see my bald dome because I'm hunched over, like doing my thing. It's great. Awesome.
Hey, how did your golf go? How'd your golf go?
Boy, I would love to tell you that it was just a horrible experience playing in 48 degrees and rain. But, like, when you played in Myrtle Beach and it was 36 degrees, like,
sure,
might as well be playing in the tropics.
Yeah, it's in the brochure here at least.
Yeah, it was the rough was insane because they can't get out and cut it. So,
no.
And the course I play probably shouldn't have those kinds of issues, but it was a little change of pace and, you know, cocktails flowing. Wasn't really that bad.
Yeah. Do you have there's like a window here today where if you're going to mow, it's right now. Like you've got a window right now to mow, and then this whole thing is going to drop because we have rain tonight, and then there's rain, you know, it looks like throughout the weekend. It's going to be cold most of the weekend. Like there's a window. It's got to be done right now, but the problem is it's rain, you know, for all these days in a row, so it's going to be soft conditions everywhere. I mean, if you're not careful, you got one of those zero turns in the right dip, you could bury that bugger.
I'm screwed. You know, I mowed on Sunday, and it was nice. It was beautiful, and got it in.
Sure.
I was hoping I would get one more in before I get away for a few days, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm going to be in. I think I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble when I come back next week.
So you're going to go. You're going to go a no mow the rest of this week, and a no mow because you're out. You're in the South.
Sunday to
next
Wednesday,
week, right? So
yeah, I come back Wednesday, just in time for the schedule release.
Oof.
I know.
Wow.
I know. And like
that's tricky, Gibby.
The Wednesday I come back,
neighbors aren't going to love you.
Yeah, and I take great pride in the lawn. You know,
I know you do.
My kids and my wife
officially
hate me because I force the lines. The lines got to be the lines. And it's got to be a different direction every time you mow. You can't mow the same direction every time.
That's right.
There's a method to the madness with a zero turn.
I know. This was going to eat at you if you didn't have this. If it's going to be sitting there uncut. I don't know how you're going to find time though. Maybe Saturday morning. There's a little window for you. It's going to have to be tight though.
That's what I'm looking at this forecast. Ugh. I mean, rain. Yeah,
40%
all day tomorrow. That'll be great. Welcome to Friday.
Just awful.
Saturday, yeah. Partly, I might be able to, but it depends how much it rains tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah. I had somebody say this to me this morning. Would you trade like our excellent March for this to be over? And I said that's an impossible thing to answer now because we're in the middle of the suck right now. So if I said no, I settled on no because coming out of February, I needed to have a good March. So I loved March. I will stand by it. I'll hold firm with it. It was a nice surprise to have that, and I would not trade that for because this isn't going to last that long. Like this should be over next week, I would think, especially the temperature part of it, the 50s, you know, and 30s at night. I mean, hopefully that's over next week, I would think. But at least you can see the light. If you have a dreary March, it feels like it's never going to end.
Yeah, that's when you start getting into the doldrums. You don't want that because the sun doesn't come out for the month of February. February is by far the worst month here.
There's no doubt. It's the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
Lottery choice. There's no question it's the worst.
No.
There's no question.
You can't. Yeah, give me March and nice weather, and then we'll figure out the rest from there.
We'll sort it out. Let's get into the OBM hot topics. OBM, Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider of your Cleveland Browns. For all the X's and O's for your office, you can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. We'll get into Gil Brandt in a second here. It is remarkable how if you can find anybody who has played with or knows Aaron Rodgers and get them to speak on the record about what his plans are, we're for it. We are for it. I mean, this is a story. There's not much more to it. It's pretty direct. He doesn't like the general manager. He probably thought he was going to be traded already. It's very, very difficult to trade him. It is not incumbent on the Green Bay Packers to trade him, certainly not now that the draft is done. They're not going to get anywhere near equal value for him. And they're under no obligation to trade him. So it feels like much similar to what we saw with Russell Wilson. And I would have been very curious to see what had happened with Deshaun Watson had there not been the off-field stuff, to see how that would have played out, to see if he would have held that off. Because remember, we had the general on, and he said that I remember having McClain on. He goes, this will, about 2 weeks before the draft, they'll trade him because that was the time to trade him. We kept waiting for the Miami offer. They didn't have to give it, weren't able to give it because of all of the stuff that's happened off the field with Deshaun Watson. So that's the only one that's kind of tricky, is because you weren't see. But these quarterbacks, this is the one position where you could try to force hand. But even they, I think, are finding it more difficult than you think it would be.
Yes. And it was interesting. I was listening to Dan Patrick today, and he had Adam Schefter on. And it got a little contentious because Dan really pushed him. Because Schefter's like, I didn't get this from Aaron's side, and I didn't get this from the Green Bay side. And Dan's like, well, is it a story? And Adam took offense because Dan was basically like, I need to separate fact and fiction and rumor and fiction. And Schefter went at him a little bit on it. And he's like, well, look, all these things add up to this. And he goes, but is that really the problem? And does Aaron Rodgers want out? Because if Aaron Rodgers wants out, Aaron Rodgers needs to step up and say something. Aaron Rodgers needs to clear the air here. Stop hiding and just veiled tweets or messages being thrown out there.
He's using his boys.
Yeah, if you want out, then say, I want out. That's
he was with A.J. Hawk over the weekend in Kentucky at the Derby. Hawk goes on McAfee on Monday and says, he basically wants the GM fired, and he feels like he's done there. So he's using those guys to do it. I think that's incredible. You're telling me Schefter said he didn't get it from the Packers and he didn't get it from Rodgers?
Yes.
What other source would it be?
It was an impressive back and forth. It really I haven't.
Wow.
It was almost 18 minutes. Otherwise, we would have played some of it. But I didn't know even where to start it and stop it. It was going back and forth.
Well, Dan has the gravity to do that, to press him. And Schefter would, that's a good question. Is it news if it's not from one of those two things? And what I guess the follow-up to that would be, is it news on the day of the draft? That's the other part of it. My feeling on this whole thing was, the reason it's news on the draft is because the Rodgers camp said, let's press this now. My theory on this was always as follows, and maybe this is our answer. You remember this, Gibby. I thought this came from the 49ers side of things. And that would also qualify as not the Packers and not Rodgers, that this came from the 49ers side. My feeling was the 49ers, they started to look like fools. That on the day before the draft, they were reaching out to Green Bay. So there was this narrative out, well, they don't know what quarterback they want, and they're panicking. And the 49ers said, well, wait a second. No, that's not what this was. Aaron Rodgers' people told us to call the Packers and see if he was available, so we did. He's an MVP. Anybody would do that, and everybody would understand it. My theory was always that this came from the 49ers camp initially, and then it came from the Packers, from the Rodgers side of, hey, this is out now. Let's we got to bury this thing so that if there's a chance to be dealt, now's the time before the draft. That's my hunch on how this thing played out. But I do believe, and that would kind of back up what Schefter said, because that's not Rodgers and that's not the Packers, that it came from the 49ers.
It's very weird. It was very and Schefter made some good points coming back, but Dan was like, well, if you didn't get it from Aaron Rodgers, and he said Aaron Rodgers didn't want this out on draft day. Okay. Well, where did it come from then?
Yeah.
Like, what?
49ers, originally.
Well, remember, before the 49ers, there was that report that the play-by-play guy in Minnesota had said that the 49ers were close on a deal. So maybe it came from the rival first.
You're right.
And they threw a little gasoline on
He's
the
the one who's that was right. That's the first thing was the play-by-play voice of the Vikings. Then I think PFT picked it up, and then it started to go. And then the 49ers, because they would be the ones who could confirm it to Schefter so he could break it. Man, yeah, that's interesting. That's true. It did come from the Minnesota. So that'd be like Jimmy breaking, Ben Roethlisberger's retiring. I mean, how would those have anything to do with one another?
Correct.
That was the case. So that is very, very tricky there. Anyway, I tend to think there's not much that can be done here. I think it's really, really complicated to try to do something, and I don't even know how you'd begin to get like value for him, or how would you define that?
Well, here's the other, the dead cap money. Like they're not going to trade him. They can't trade him.
They can't trade him.
There's just no. I mean, maybe it means he holds out or he sits out, but like Green Bay can't take that. They can't just take a hit like that and get rid of him and get nothing for him. Here's a bunch of draft picks for next year. Well, number one, that goes back to NBA trades when they happen. Like when LeBron left the first time and they traded him, they ended up trading him to Miami. That way we could get something for him.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the draft picks. You're going to be contending for an NBA Finals every year. Your draft pick's going to be garbage. It's not like it's a top 10 or a top 5.
No.
I mean, whoever gets Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be picking in the top 10.
No. The one difference is you can in the NFL you can still get a dude at the end of the first round, end of the second round. You can still get a big time player. I mean, we got JOK towards the end of the second round this year, so you can still get. And one player doesn't make the difference it does in the NBA, other than quarterback. I mean, that's the one that does make a tremendous difference. It's hard for me to see this being anything other than him playing for Green Bay, at least for one more year. If he wants to play, it seems like that's where it will be. But you'll continue to follow it, because the other thing that's going on is normally there'd be some OTA stuff happening, but we're going back into the COVID protocols from the season. I saw that yesterday from Tom Pelissaro. So you're not going to get, we've talked about this a lot. You and me and Z, we've talked about this a lot. There is not the normal information flow in the NFL right now that there was around the combine, that there was around the pro days. Normally stories percolate from that. There isn't. There isn't a big dose of that. So this story is one that it's going to be there because it's something to grab onto NFL, and the NFL dominates. But there's not going to be a whole lot of layers to this, I don't think, other than just like I was saying, like John Kuhn is out there speaking for Rodgers, that he's conflicted, that he loves the Packers. So that's just going to be a lot of that, Gibby, is what it's going to be. I'm glad we're not in the middle of it. I'll tell you that, because it's a mess.
I mean, if all the national media outlets did not have Aaron Rodgers, what are you talking about right now? Because everything's virtual.
Well, you're talking about a hockey fight last night is what's going on.
Awesome, by the way.
Fight.
Awesome fight. And the
NHL
overreacting and fining the Rangers is that's a joke and a half.
So Tom Wilson, who's a notorious fighter for the Capitals, certainly goes above and beyond the line of what is considered acceptable in the game with the Rangers earlier this week, including Artemi Panarin, who he kind of pulls down from his hair. Panarin's out the rest of the year. It's a pretty ugly sight. The NHL doesn't suspend him; they fine him $5,000. The Rangers then put a letter out saying that George Peros, who's the head of deciding player safety, that he's unfit and should be removed. yesterday afternoon, the Rangers president, John Davidson, who used to be the president of the Blue Jackets, is one of the 5 most popular Rangers of all time. He's fired in the middle of the afternoon. Just fired. President and GM of the Rangers are fired. So then they play the hockey game. Wilson plays. It is a absolute Donnybrook from the drop of the puck. There's several more fights, 3 or 4 more fights. Eventually, Wilson can't come back to the game because he has a, quote, upper body injury. So he's done, and then they eventually play the game. And then at the end of the night, and then this morning, the Rangers are fined $250,000 for their comments that they made that Wilson should have been suspended. And in the end, I think the NHL won, because here we are talking about the NHL even for 2 minutes. They were all over SportsCenter with this. It's been all over Get Up and everything else. So in a way, they kind of win, but they have this, much like the NFL has kind of a tricky relationship with big hits, the NHL now has a tricky relationship with fighting. There's been a lot of former players, several who have committed suicide. The CTE stuff is real. There aren't that many teams that even have. There used to be every team had a goon. Everybody had a heavy.
Yes.
They don't have that anymore. There really isn't that anymore. There's several buddies of mine, Jared Bowl and Jody Shelley with the Blue Jackets specifically, who that was their role, was they went and fought. Teams aren't carrying those guys anymore who do that. So it's a really complicated, because so much of the popularity of that sport in America especially is based on the fighting. You think of the Broad Street Bullies, you think of all of that.
100%.
Yeah, and they're trying to get away from it, and because it's just been it's much like the big hitting in the NFL that was marketed for so long.
That puck dropped last night, and there were 3 fights. That puck hadn't even hit the ice, and 3 Rangers were throwing haymakers. Yeah. It was spectacular. I'm like, yes,
there were 3
let's
fights
go.
in the first 10 minutes.
Yes,
in the first. I mean, it was just, and every time Wilson was on the ice, he was being hunted. I mean, it was a wild thing to see. This from Gil Brandt, NFL.com, ranked his top 5 off seasons in 2021. Tampa Bay number 1, New England number 2, Jacksonville 3, Jets are 4, 5 is the Giants. Strange we were not on that list, but I'm not going to crush everybody for their opinion. And Gil's a legend; he's a Hoff. I'd be very interested to know how he justifies New England having the second best off season. They spent a lot of money. They had to. I mean, they had to go sign tight ends because they couldn't draft them.
Yeah, I think it was all about their. I think it was all about their spending spree.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I think ours is second only to Tampa Bay's, just because Tampa Bay won a Super Bowl and got everybody to come back and some people to come back at discount.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't. And again, you and I are on the same page on the Jets. I'm not sold on who they took at number 2 at quarterback.
No, I don't believe in Zach Wilson until now. I was wrong on Josh Allen, so it's possible that I get this one wrong too. But for now, until you see it, you know, you kind of you hold out reservation. And I think Jacksonville had a very uneven. You get Trevor Lawrence, so that's a lot of credit for that. But I think the draft was uneven. I think the free agency
You were the
was
worst team in the league. That's why you got Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
that's exactly right. And their free agency, even Urban lamented like how difficult it was, like getting the guys they wanted to even be interested or to take their phone call, which was a big departure for him. I've got no problem with Tampa Bay being number 1, but the rest, I don't even know what the Jets and Giants did, to be honest. I mean, I would think we should be number 2 on any sort of off-season list. I think the Chargers had a nice off-season so far as well. So we'll see where all of these things shake out. Got a lot of fun on the program today. John Greco will join us here in about 15 minutes. You'll hear from Baker Mayfield on the Complex Sports podcast. You have that to look forward to. That's coming up next. Gribb's coming up in the second hour of the program as well. And Newsome was on Good Morning Football this morning, so we have that to look forward to, which is nice. Off and running on a Thursday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down. So we're going to go in order for this, just one.
Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
You are up.
And Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Service. Need a roof replacement? Would you like to replace your roof for the final time? Well, that's the benefit of choosing a metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, and colors have improved significantly. They're beautiful, nearly indestructible, and affordable. Plus, with a new metal roof, Weather Seal includes a 6-inch gutter upgrade up to 7 years, 0 interest financing. That's right, 7 years, 0 interest. Give them a call, 877-351-SEAL, or visit WeatherSealHomeservices.com. Our guy Baker Mayfield on the Complex Sports Podcast. Many topics discussed here, among them his offseason training and the difference from last year to this year.
I feel great right now. I just been training, getting everything going a little bit earlier. I think I finally found a successful routine for me during the last offseason. And so was just able to get that started earlier. Like I started working with the trainer that, I'm going to keep for a long time. He's been great. CJ McFarland, he's down there in Texas, but, started working with him in like late May, early June of last offseason. And this year I was able to get started with him mid-March. So, I mean, I have months of a head start on it. And that's been great for me.
Well, a couple things on that, Gibby, that jump out. Number one, remember last year in March would have been at the height of, COVID and total lockdowns and all of those things. And now obviously we were in a very different space with the virus and our knowledge of it. So I think that's a big part of it. The second thing is the thing that jumps out to me is continuity for your quarterback. So continuity with your offense, continuity with your training. Seems like that was something he wasn't sure about the first couple of off seasons. Now he gets one. He gets a full off season. He's got the same offense, same coaching staff. All of those things add up to a very good base being built by your starting quarterback.
Well, and that you said it. I mean, that's the biggest thing to me is you've got he doesn't have to learn a new playbook. And it's easier to get into your off-season routine when you're not having to learn yet another playbook, a new coach, a new coaching system. I mean, he's able to get in and get the off-season started the right way and start it a little bit earlier. I loved hearing that. I love that he's been doing what he's been doing because we got the best of Baker Mayfield last year.
Yeah, and now you expect a continuation of that going into next season for him. He was also asked about how quickly quarterbacks drafted in round one can be gone by the end of their rookie deals. And remember, this is in response to he's the only quarterback drafted in the top 5 who's still with his team from 2017 through the last draft. He was the only one that was still there from 2017 to 19 in those 3 drafts. And here's why it is so difficult for teams to protect quarterbacks, according to your quarterback.
Every situation is different, and there's some bad ones, that's for sure. And how you weather that storm, how you handle those challenges. And when it comes down to it, if you're a quarterback, however you say or lead, that's the way it goes. And so even if the rest of the building might not agree with you, if you are yourself and you show why you were picked that high or why you were brought to the town, and you show those things and you get the guys in the locker room to believe around that, that's the most important thing. And every situation's different. Everybody's got different agendas, and I just think it's not fair for me to directly compare, but there's some tough situations that guys walk into, but you have to be extremely mentally tough and strong to be able to weather those storms.
Yeah, and I don't think you can question his mental toughness because I think if you go back to the start of last season and it was going sideways, and he righted the ship in that Cincinnati game in real time. I mean, he righted it in real time in Cincinnati, really didn't look back from that point on and played at a very, very high elite level. He's right on, you think about it, you think about the teams in his draft alone, you look at the quarterbacks who were drafted in that draft class, and you cannot argue, and it's not a coincidence, that the one that's in the best shape, the most accomplished is Lamar, he won an MVP, but the one who's in the best shape now and going forward is Josh Allen, because from the time they drafted him, and Baltimore's close with Lamar, but remember in the beginning, John Harbaugh we didn't know if Harbaugh was going to be around. You didn't know if he was going to endorse Lamar. I mean, they weren't playing him right away. Now, he did, to his credit, he did. He saw the effectiveness, and now they have a system. But Josh Allen, from day one in Buffalo, was, from the outside looking in, it appears to be their thought was, What can we do to put this kid in a position to succeed? And everything we do will be that. Now, you can have those be the intentions. It's one thing for that to be the intention. I think that was the intention here, certainly, was put him in the very best chance to succeed. But because of missteps here and there, it wasn't until last year with Stefanski that it all came together. For Allen, it's been that way since he got to Buffalo. And that's a rarity. That's a rarity.
Well, and it goes back to what he said. You can rally your teammates, and you can get everybody on board. But if everybody is not aligned, and everybody has to be and include your coaching staff, your front office, and if there's any kind of divide, it doesn't work. And what you saw was Baker rallying the troops. Just needed someone on the sidelines and in the front office to all three to get in line together, and they all did. You know, Barry and Stefanski came in, and I'm sure there was a little bit of, I don't know what this is going to look like. This is my my fourth coach,
sure.
and it's worked, and everybody's gotten in step, and you know, Baker brought the troops, and Stefanski took them, and the rest, you know. The 11 wins, 12 wins.
Yeah. Look at this quarterback. Look at the quarterbacks that were first rounders this year. And if I were to say to you in 5 years, will their current coach be their same coach, and will they be on the same spot? Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Odds are not.
Yeah.
I mean, odds are not. Odds are not that Urban will not be there in 5 years.
Correct.
I don't think that would be. I mean, He's usually 7 years in college, but that's when he controls everything. He's not going to control everything here. At the very least, odds are pretty good he's not going to have the same play caller in Jacksonville.
Agreed.
That he has to start his career. Zach Wilson with the Jets. Man, beats me. Could go any number of ways.
You could have a new coach a year from now.
Yeah, that's totally unstable. Trey Lance in San Francisco. I mean, certainly Kyle's reputation would lead you to believe that he's going to be there and would be able to see it through with Trey Lance. But how much patience do the York family have? I mean, he got the 1 year to the Super Bowl. The other 3 years he's been there, they've lost.
I think you've got, if you're Kyle and you're Lynch, you got this year and you got next year. And we better see something at that
and Trey
point.
Lance better be a dude next year, because we gave up 2 1s to get him, and now the plan is you're not going to play him this year.
Yep.
He better be a dude. Justin Fields is the worst of all of them. It's hard to imagine any scenario where unless Fields just carries the franchise, where Matt Nagy is in Chicago next year coaching Justin Fields. That to me is the one that's the longest odds to happen, right?
You could not. Yeah, it's great he went to Chicago, but I don't. You might have a new GM and a new coach. Now the GM went out on a limb and got guys, but. You know, I mean, he also gave up a lot of draft picks, a lot of future capital to get you.
Yeah, to that end, Mac Jones, New England. That'll be the same. That's either going to be Belichick or McDaniels.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Bill's not going anywhere.
I mean, he's in the best spot.
Somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, he's in a pretty stable spot, you would think, in New England. That obviously Josh McDaniels will replace Belichick whenever that time is, but it'll be the same, and be a similar thing. He'll be able to get. And by the way, probably going from one similar situation to another, from Alabama to New England. Saban and Belichick do a lot of the things similar, so he'll be used to it. He'll be able to hit the ground running there. Last one for Baker. This was the question was: are you planning on getting the guys together this offseason like you did last year? We've seen that he has already. Let's have a listen.
Absolutely. You know, we have to start that foundation to build to where we want to go, excuse me. But it's for me, it's the notion of everybody's going to try and set expectations for us. But as long as we put the work in and take it one day at a time, I think when we look up in the end, I think we'll be where we want to be. But, you know, it doesn't just happen just because we have a talented roster with the same system and some continuity. We have to put the work in and go accomplish it.
I think it was a big thing that he did going to Miami. I mean, remember last year everybody came to Austin.
Yep.
And he went to Miami this year to do the work. So I think that's a nice – I saw, Hoop was down there and Chief was down there, and we know Jarvis is down there. So, that's really positive stuff that's happening. Hopefully Baker's here in a couple weeks. We can have a mini camp and see what that all looks like. It's going to be fun, certainly, to see him operate in this offseason in this offense with the full offseason. Let's John Greco about all of this. He joins us next. Talk a little draft with him. Talk about offseason plans, where it goes, the depth chart fights that are going to be out there. There are a lot of them. We'll get into that with Mr. Greco coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Guys are down.
Obsessing over something like football can be a problem, but if you're obsessing over gambling, it can be downright dangerous. So do something to take your mind off it. Find a hobby, perhaps. If you want some tips, go to Keep It Fun Ohio for great ways to keep gambling fun. And with that, we head out on the hotline for a visit with our good buddy John Greco, former Brown, of course, an analyst on the Cleveland Browns radio network. And John, now just kind of a little bit of chance to reflect on all of this. And the one thing that we take a look at from a big picture perspective, and I'm going to get your take on the draft and how Cleveland put itself out there for the draft and for the NFL world to see, and certainly that was good. But I did want to just start with just the roster construction that's taken place here over the last couple of years. And whoever you want to follow, whether it's the PFF guys or anybody who goes out there with a power ranking, we're typically in the top 5 or 6. Most people think we have a top 5 roster in the league. When you look at this roster top to bottom, what do you see?
Beau, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great talking to you. And I completely agree with the experts, all over the place. I think this roster on paper is in the top 5. And, most importantly and more importantly, I think the coaching staff and the leadership is in the top 5 as well. And the way that they addressed needs in the offseason through the defensive overhaul, really, in free agency, and obviously now we're talking the draft. It just seems like this group of leadership, Andrew Berry, his team, everybody from top to bottom, the head coach, his supporting cast, they recognize weaknesses, they have a vision, and they have a plan to execute it, and it is very clear and transparent what they are doing and how they're making this team and roster better. And it's exciting, Beau. I mean, you look at what they did last season in addressing the offensive line, and they did that. And they invested a lot of capital into it, and they reaped the benefits. Baker Mayfield had a better season. It's his confidence seems like it's there. The running game was stellar. So you're seeing that now where they're addressing the defense in an area where, let's all be frank, I don't think it's any secret that needed some improvement. And through free agency and now the draft, this defense got better. It's going to result in this team getting better. So I'm excited.
It's interesting when you say that. And I'm sure you've thought of this as well. We've talked about earlier this week. I mean, they basically could field an entire starting 11 on defense of new guys. And of course, that would not include Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward if you did that, or Ronnie Harrison. Or new guys are guys who didn't play because, of course, Delpit and Greedy did not play last year. John, I think I want to ask you about the secondary improvements, and I think you can kind of – JOK is a linebacker, but you can kind of put him in there because he spends some time in coverage. What they did in the secondary this year, John, was very similar to me what they did in the offensive line last year. They went into last offseason and said the offensive line, this is not good enough, and they said this is job one to fix it. It appears Andrew Berry and crew did the exact same thing this year with the secondary.
Absolutely, and you said it. And, let's talk about the scheme for a second. And, I know you guys cover this a lot, and it's no secret, but Joe Wood's scheme, it's having an extra, quote unquote little guy, or maybe a cover guy, or you pull an extra defensive lineman, a big guy out, and you put another fast guy, speedy cover, maybe blitzer in the game. So the guys that you saw that were picked and added to this roster, they all fit the same kind of mold. They're versatile players. They're smart players. I heard left and right on draft night, Andrew Berry talked about character. So he's bringing good character people in addition with high skill and talent players to this roster. And I think you saw that offensively when they addressed the offensive line like we talked about last season. And now you're seeing this. So, you talked about JOK. He's a guy that, in my opinion, I thought that they were going to pull the trigger on at number 26. And for them to, they traded up obviously to 52 without giving up the house, but they gave up some capital. And for them to get him in the second round and take a talent like Greg Newsome the second with 26 overall who can cover anybody in this league, I think they got a lot better. And we talked about Troy Hill. You said getting Greedy Williams back from injury, and Denzel, if he's on the field, he's playing at a Pro Bowl level and an all-pro caliber player. The sky's the limit for this defense. And, you add names like Jadeveon Clowney and John Johnson III, and we talked about Graham Delpit, who we haven't seen yet, but who's got big-time upside and huge potential. If you're surrounding guys like Myles Garrett, who is a generational talent, a nightmare for offensive lines and offensive coaches, if you're surrounding him with this kind of talent, it's going to make this defense that much more dangerous and that much more fun to watch this upcoming season.
I wanted to ask you about that from your perspective. You talked about that versatility, and when Kevin Stefanski was on with us on Browns Live on Thursday with Nathan and I, he used the word versatility, and Joe Woods used the word versatility. And you start talking about you're in a defense that has Delpit, Harrison, and Johnson all on the field at the same time. You've got JOK out there, and you've got maybe it's Jacob Phillips out there. Those guys are all pretty similar body type, John. Now, the defense doesn't have many advantages anymore. A lot of it's been legislated out of the league, and I know you're not going to feel sorry for him as an offensive guy. But from your vantage point, when you have 5 guys that are all kind of similar body type, how difficult does that make your job?
Well, Bo, that's a great question. Let's go in the classroom for a second, because speaking through the vision of a center or any offensive lineman, in our room, you make you're making and breaking on third down in this league and handling pressures. It's how you keep your quarterback upright. That's how you extend drives, and that's how you score. So when you're sitting there and you're breaking down tape and analyzing these guys, you're looking at tendencies. You're looking at who can they bring? Are they leveraged? Which way? Where's the strength? Where's the rotation? You're looking at all these things from every level of the defense. So the advantage that the Browns are going to have this year, and really all defenses, because of the number change where these guys can be out there wearing number 11 and 5 and anything they want, that's going to create serious issues for opposing offenses, in particular offensive lines. Because let me paint a picture for you. You're in Cleveland Brown Stadium. It's third down. The crowd's going nuts, and you're trying to dissect and analyze with the play clock running down who's who, where your assignment is, who the front 5 are blocking, who the running back in the protection, and then who is potentially be a free hitter for the quarterback, and then he has to get rid of the ball. It's going to make things that much more problematic for opposing offenses to try to handle these guys. And you talked about versatility. Like we said, Andrew Berry talked about that in length, of guys that he wanted to bring on and that checked his boxes for who he thought would fit in on this defense. When you have a guy that can be creeping toward the line of scrimmage and you're thinking, this guy can come, this guy can blitz, and all of a sudden, last second before the snap count goes off, he rotates back into coverage, and all of a sudden you're blitzing someone else from another side. That is going to create serious issues for opposing offenses. So all of these guys that we talked about, they can all rush the passer, they can all cover, they can all, fake like they're rushing and drop back into coverage. So Joe Woods and his coaching staff are going to have a field day with messing with opposing quarterbacks and offenses and really having a lot of fun. So I predict them to have a lot of exotic new packages where you're going to see guys blitzing left and right. They're going to be throwing the kitchen sink at opposing offenses, because anybody on this defense, even the defensive line, can drop back into zone coverage, and a lot of these players can get home from any level of the defense. So it's going to be fun to watch, Bo.
John, you're the first one that I mean, you and Tom Brady, so you have that in common. But I saw JOK getting 28, and I was thinking to myself, that's going to be confusing.
Yeah.
And I do think it's the first time I've heard somebody else acknowledge it. I mean, how often did you just look up and go, there's 5, that's my linebacker. He's a 50. Now all of a sudden 28, you're like, who is he? What's his spot? Who's his position? And I do think there's a chance for it to confuse some people.
Absolutely. And first of all, being in the same category with Tom Brady, I appreciate that. That was a nice compliment. But he
said it too.
Yeah, and that's just me thinking like a center. And when you're working with the quarterbacks, there's only so many things. You can have paralysis of analysis, we call it. You're looking at a team's blitzes or pressures, and it's never ending. It's endless. And especially when you play a team like Pittsburgh or Baltimore, they have so many packages. So you try to take as much thinking as you can out of it for younger players or inexperienced players. So you say, okay, these are the 4 down guys. Primarily they're wearing 90s, maybe a couple 70s. And then you look at these linebackers and you say, okay, they might have a package where this guy, number 54, he's walking around, he's kind of by the line of scrimmage. We're going to call him a down lineman. And then it takes all the guesswork out of it. But now you don't know. Normally you see a little guy in a 20 number, a 30 number. You're like, oh, he's a corner. Don't worry about him. He's covering somebody. Now, like you said, 28, 13, you don't know who's going to be out there rushing the passer and blitzing and coming from all over the place. So these offenses are going to have to be so sound with their protections. They're going to have to spend extra time and resources during the week preparing for Cleveland and trying to protect and get everybody on the same page, that it's going to cause serious issues. And I'm excited for it. So when you have the ability to drop 3 and rush 8, you can blitz the house, you can rush 4 and drop everybody back in coverage. Everybody, when I'm looking at these names in the secondary, like we talked about to revisit, these guys can cover. They can cover a lot of ground and zone. They can play man-to-man. The safeties can cover a lot of ground. So they can really gamble and play dirty in a lot of senses and bring extra rushers to try to force the ball out of the quarterback's hand and, force punts or turnovers.
JG, it's Gibbs. Give me your favorite player in this draft, the guy maybe that you're most excited about seeing when the pads come on in late July, early August from this draft class.
Well, Gibbs, I'm going to give you two, if that's okay. And, I'm not going to – I'm sure everybody else is picking the first two picks. But obviously, being an offensive guy, I'm excited about Anthony Schwartz. He's the fastest player in the draft. He has the ability to light it up. And I think we saw when Odell Beckham went down last year, we kind of missed that presence where you can just have an electrifying play where it was just like, hey, have this guy run around, outrun everybody, and have Baker throw it up to him. So I'm hoping that Anthony can bring that element that can really create some explosive plays in the offense where, when in doubt, let's throw it up to him and have him come down with it, like you see the Chiefs do with Tyreek Hill. So I'm hoping that he's a player that can develop into that, and obviously his ability with his speed should be there for the taking. And another guy that I'm excited about is the Ohio State defensive tackle, Tommy Togiai. I think he has a great upside. He's going to be in a defensive tackle rotation that includes guys like we talked about, Malik Jackson, Jordan Elliott, who's primed for a big year of improvement. And we talked about Andrew Billings coming off the opt-out year, so he should be refreshed, refocused, energized. But I think Tommy's going to be a player that can, create havoc in the center of that defensive line and push guards and centers back to get in quarterbacks' faces. And then that's when those edge guys are really going to clean up and get the sack numbers. But I think a guy like Tommy that was picked in the 4th round, Ohio State kid, so he's used to playing in front of Ohio fans and Ohio State fans, and I'm sure he's going to fit in real well with Cleveland Browns fans that love their players and love their team. But I would say those two guys, Gibby, are who I'm most excited to see.
All right, so the big cliche is iron sharpens iron, but how much fun and yet how competitive is this going to be come training camp for these guys to make the 53-man roster? I mean, we've talked about it all week. You look at this roster, there are no holes, and yet you've got 90 guys competing for 53 spots. I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy how intense training camp's going to be here.
You're absolutely right. It's going to be, I'm glad that I don't have to make these decisions, but it's going to be on Coach Stefanski to know when to pull back and when to amp it up. Because let me tell you something that maybe not too many people are thinking about, but I would definitely be thinking about. This defense, right? Myles Garrett, the guys that have been here, Greedy, Denzel, all they're hearing about is how great the offense is. How, this offensive line can block anyone. Nobody can get after this quarterback. These receivers got better. These two running backs, they can run the ball on anyone. The defense is going to take that very personally. And they've gotten better. That's no secret. But you don't have these OTAs where, it's a lot is pulled back. They don't have that competition where they're in the building every day with one another. It's not as chippy. So now come camp, when those guys get the pads on, the defense is going to have something in their minds to prove to everyone, especially themselves. So they're going to be fired up. They want to be the reason why this team – they want to be the units that's talked about on this team, why they're in the playoffs, why they're pushing for, the divisional crown and maybe a home field game in the playoffs. The defense is going to want to be the group that's talked about, and they're going to take that personally into camp, and they're going to want to shut up the doubters and prove everybody that this is a complete team. So, Gibbs, I'm excited about it. I'm hoping to come and catch a practice because it's going to be competitive. It's going to be chippy. And getting back to your point, there's roster spots that they can take in September on opening day. You're going to want to be a part of it. Every year that I played on the team, it was always about, let's see if we can win some games this year. Let's try to turn the corner. Let's get there. You want to be a part of the solution and not the problem. Now it's like you don't want to be left out of the party and left behind. These guys are going to be practicing that much harder, playing that much harder because they want to be there because they see the upside and the potential that this team has.
Yeah, it's a remarkable thing. And you talk about Tommy Togiai, there's really probably only one spot, and he's one of like 5 guys in Marvin Wilson, the undrafted free agent, who was a #1 player in the country at defensive tackle coming out of high school. You talk about Malik McDowell's in that room. It is loaded for one spot, so that competition is going to be crazy, John. I want to ask you this, and I'll get you out of here on this. Coach Stefanski said this week that one of his biggest challenges will be, and I have full confidence in being able to do it, but we'll be bringing this all together and getting everybody to row in the same direction, because obviously talent's not the issue. So how do you build a team? On the teams you've been on where that has been done, what are some of the things, what are some of the boxes that get checked in order to build that type of cohesiveness that this one needs to be a contender next year?
Well, great question. And I think it all starts with the head coach addressing the team on the first day that they get together. And, all these coaches sound good. They put up their PowerPoints. Everything's a celebration early on. I mean, nobody's hit anyone yet. You haven't played any games. It's the honeymoon phase. Now, what I think the advantage that Coach Stefanski has is he went through everything last year of all the things, practicing in parking garages, everything that went with COVID and injuries, and they still came out and won a playoff game on the other side of it. So they have that advantage. They have the experience. He already has that respect from the players that are on the roster. The new guys, the new faces, the fresh guys that are going to be there, they're going to follow in the leaders, the experienced guys' footsteps. This team is packed with leaders. So what those guys do is they lead by example. They lead through their words, through their actions. The new guys are going to jump on board and bring their own unique and personal energy and personal characteristics. So they're going to bring their own flavor and style. But it's Cleveland Browns football. I think you saw last year they run the ball well. They're powerhouse. They take big shots. They're chippy. They're confident. And I think even more now they know moving forward that they're arguably one of the better teams in the AFC and the team to beat. So as long as they can live up to those expectations and hype and stay the course, which I know Kevin Stefanski is going to have them doing, it should be good. But right from Jump Street, they have to have a vision, they have to have a goal, and they have to have clear-cut steps of what they have to do in order to achieve those things. And I know behind the scenes those guys are putting those into place.
John, you're the best, buddy. Appreciate your time today, my friend.
Guys, always, thanks for having me.
All right, that's our good buddy John Greco, former Brown and analyst on the Cleveland Browns radio network. Sir Andrew will join us coming up at the top of the hour. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Elk and Elk, serious lawyers for serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK Ohio for a free case review. Elk and Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. With that, we head on the hotline for a visit with our good buddy, Sir Andrew Gribble, joining us, our senior staff writer, of course, to reflect on the draft, the upcoming rookie mini camp, what the summer holds as well. But I want to do big picture with you first here, Gribbs, and just a draft weekend completed in Cleveland. And it's interesting, we had the promo from Bernie that was airing, and that's kind of the image that will sink in with me, was the chance of Bernie as the commissioner was trying to start the draft with him and Joe and Jarvis up there. And then certainly I know you've seen the ratings here in Cleveland for the draft, and just a real reminder of what football means here. And even amidst still COVID restrictions, and really the first time I think the sports world's kind of been able to all gather in about a year, all of those things coming together for what was pretty magical for me. What was it like for you in terms of what you observed?
Yeah, obviously I was in Berea the entire weekend, so that's one of the downsides, I guess, of the job. I didn't get to go out and experience it, but I just wonder, to me, the product on TV looked as if like it was back to normal. I just think it looked like a production that was, what we're used to seeing on draft weekend, and that makes me wonder. What would this have looked like without COVID? This could have been truly a huge. Like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people just down there for one night, but it just looked awesome. I thought it was a great reflection of the city. I thought to see Mel Kiper wearing sunglasses on Saturday, proving to people that the sun does shine in Cleveland occasionally in the spring. It just looked gorgeous. The skyline looked great in the background on NFL Network. I loved watching it, and as someone who grew up here, it was a good source of pride, because I thought Cleveland represented itself really well on this stage and showed kind of the needed adaptability to take on what was a massive undertaking with COVID, and just to simply execute this event.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's interesting that I agree with you. And we rarely see our city captured that way. But because of the location of the draft stage, you got that view of downtown from the water, and then you also got the water. And you had those incredible sunsets, which we adore here, but you rarely see on television. I thought it was an incredible showcase. I thought it was really smart to put the draft stage where they put it, Gribbs.
Yeah, and it was funny. I think I was seeing one of the responses to Brian McCarthy, the NFL PR guy, and someone was asking him if they didn't know the draft, that Cleveland was on an ocean. They had no idea. It's like one of those things where if you haven't been to Cleveland, you don't realize how massive this lake really is, and then the beauty that kind of comes with it. And I think, I've been around for some draft weekends in Cleveland in previous years where the weather would have really could have had the potential to wreak some havoc, but it mostly behaved. And I think that was great to see, and it timed very well. And again, I think it was so rewarding for Browns fans to be able to celebrate the draft and know that it's not their only hope to have an improved team next year. It was like it was the right timing. Cleveland is so associated with the drafts because of the high picks and the hope for the future. The thing with Cleveland now, the future has arrived, and I think it made it even more of a celebration for the Browns, where they could have current players on the stage that they can go nuts for, and not just the ones they're adding to the roster.
Yeah, it's right, Gribbs. We've said on this show, it said it a couple of months ago, forever the Super Bowl, the draft was the Super Bowl for the Cleveland Browns, and now the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl for the Cleveland Browns. And then it's interesting, like you get a legitimate double rainbow at the end of the draft, and you kind of got a double rainbow with your first two picks. I don't know that anybody thought Newsome would be there at 26, let alone Owusu-Koramoah at 52. To get them both and to be able to have that type of victory lap right out of the gates, we'll talk about the whole draft, but to get two guys who I think can be impact guys right away with your first and second pick. PFF had these guys as 19 and 20 on their overall board. We got them at 26 and 52, Gribbs.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is, as I mentioned on BPA this week, like this is the third straight year the Browns in the second round have gotten a player that was routinely a first-round pick in everyone's projections going into the draft. It goes back to Greedy Williams, Grant Delpit, and now Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And each one of those times also you made a move to go get them, which is a signal, even though you did trade back to get Delpit the previous year, you knew he would be there. But there are moves that indicated you had the guy you wanted and you went out and got him, or you made a move that you knew would end up with that player as your end result. And I thought that was that's what's made the second round almost so entertaining for the Browns these last couple of years, is because you're getting these high-profile, talented players and kind of livening up a day of the draft that is maybe for more of the diehards. I think that it's just an exciting moment to get two talented players on defense who, I think a lot of this post-draft stuff can be conjecture, be like, oh, we had this guy graded as a first-round pick, we're happy to get him in the third. I mean, this is a legitimate player that the Browns were eyeing in the first round, and to have him fall in this situation, I think with this kind of defense, with what you're seeing built around him, with the type of players, and then you go out and draft a Tony Fields in the fifth round who's very similar, that just shows you there's a plan in place to use a player like this. I think that's what makes this even more exciting. And then on top of that, the local-ish flavor with getting two Midwestern guys who played in the Midwest. I think there's even more familiarity with these guys because there's a lot of Notre Dame fans in Cleveland and a lot of players that know the damage that Greg Newsome did at Northwestern, especially in that Big Ten championship.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you had Tommy Togiai in the fourth round, who's another, obviously people are very, very familiar with him. And speaking of guys, I mean, if Tommy Togiai returns to Ohio State, I think most people would have thought he'd be potential to be a first-round pick. He comes out early. He's there in the fourth round. Most people had him as a third-round guy. You get him in the fourth. And that just kind of repeated throughout the draft board. Hudson's another guy who I know Gibby liked a lot in his film analysis, and he's a guy who you're able to scoop up. It fits need. It fits plan. And I go back to the comments you make on Fields and JOK, and you think about the three safeties. You think about a body type, and you think about how difficult it will be. And I just asked this to Greco, how difficult it will be for offenses to decipher where is pressure coming from, where are they dropping. All these dudes look the same.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, Grant Delpit is kind of the reverse of Owusu-Koramoah, where he can play, he can be comfortable in the box, but has those free safety skills as well. Ronnie as well can play him all over the back end of the defense, and then almost a guy we've forgotten to mention in a while, and all of a sudden got John Johnson III, who was one of the best safeties in the league last year. I mean, this is a truly a transformed defense, and I think that we went into this draft thinking the Browns are pretty happy with their linebackers. I think that all indications were that was the case, and I still do believe that was the case, but there was just so much value in getting an Owusu-Koramoah, getting a Tony Fields, where now you're shaking up the skill set a little bit in that room. And to me, it'll be interesting to see who emerges as your 3 or 4 guys that you're going to be using a lot out there, because there's a lot of candidates. I mean, I thought Sione Takitaki had a really good year last year. We all liked Jacob Phillips and what he did near the end of last year. And you throw in Owusu-Koramoah, you think about all the experience Mack Wilson has, and then you sign Anthony Walker. I mean, there's a lot of guys there suddenly vying for what could be at times just 2 spots. So it'll be really interesting to see how this shakes out, and really at all levels of the defense, outside of maybe the spot Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward occupying this defense. You're going to have a lot of competition for these spots.
Yeah, and you just did it at linebacker. Play that game at defensive tackle, too.
Right.
I mean, you got Andrew Billings back. You know that. You signed Malik Jackson. He's there. You like Jordanelli a lot. You picked him in the third round. Now you had Togiai to that room. You had Marvin Wilson, who was the number 1 defensive tackle in high school coming out. Malik McDowell, who hasn't played in a while but was dominant when he did at Michigan State. His mind's right. We're comfortable with where he is. All of that is kind of for one spot, isn't it, Gribbs?
Yeah, I mean, you really, for both spots, I mean, if you entered this offseason and you enter even training camp, it's safe to say your biggest question marks right now are probably in areas you want to get better are defensive tackle and linebacker, because defensive tackle, both your starters from last year are gone. But now you've set up environments where you have legitimate competitions at both of these position groups, where your best 4 really can emerge based on what you see in August. You don't have to be locked into to a certain number of these players. And I think maybe a week ago you would have been a little bit nervous thinking there's only 4 defensive tackles on these rosters. What if one of these guys get hurt? But now you have 8, and suddenly you have a competition set up where what if Andrew Billings is shaking off some rust from last year? You've got someone that can push and be ready to go on day one. The same with linebacker, with just so many players who you sign or project as being guys you can be comfortable with. The best ones ultimately get on the field. And I think that's what I think was kind of being established this offseason on the defense, because it's not enough to just go out and get a few players on 1-year deals to fill some holes. You need to make it so that you're not relying specifically on those guys and having some other options at that position. And the Browns certainly have a lot of options now on their defense.
Yeah, they do. It's in one off season they attacked it, and they've turned, certainly in the secondary especially, a weakness into really one of the best units in all of the NFL. In a normal circumstance, we would have OTAs, we would have minicamp, you'd have rookie minicamp before that. There's a lot going on that front, obviously, between the NFL and the NFLPA. Beyond that, though, you also have Tom Pelissero yesterday saying that we're going back to the COVID protocols of the season. What do you anticipate this? You mentioned seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. There's still some uncertainty in terms of what this is going to be like here in the coming weeks. What do you anticipate seeing, Gribbs?
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see what ultimately develops, and the rookie minicamp is really our first opportunity to see some spring football since 2019, and I get it that the rookie minicamps aren't going to look like what they used to because of the limits on tryout guys, but it's just going to be refreshing to see that happen. And once that happens, I'm curious to see what happens after that. I mean, that's the big question mark with the players treating it as voluntary. But as of now, the mandatory minicamp is still mandatory. And I think that that's something that can be bookmarked on the calendar as something that's likely to happen in some form. And I think that it's just going to be the back and forth, the ongoing negotiations. So at this point, simply having a rookie minicamp puts you in a better spot than you were in last year. I mean, that's just something that didn't exist, and nothing else existed in the spring. So at the minimum, that's the bare minimum, you're in a better spot with getting these guys ready. But I do think the Browns and the rest of the NFL will enter a situation where they've got some idea of their guys from an on-field perspective, just not what they're accustomed to with having kind of almost 100% participation in all these OTAs, because I think it still is a situation where the players are pretty determined that they'll treat those as voluntary.
Yeah, it does seem that way. The NFL firing back pretty hard. You saw the stuff with the injury in Denver and how that would be treated. So it's a tough spot, and it's some place nobody wants to be, and all anybody wants to do is just see a little football, and that probably happened one way or another. Next week we have the schedule drop. Obviously, that thing is guarded with lock and key and no chance of it. I do think it's safe to say, Gribbs, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that we will be featured a lot. And I would think that we would have quite a bit of prime time stuff going. That happened in 19, and we did not have as complete a team as we have this year going in. What do you anticipate seeing next week with the schedule release?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect, at least a few national opportunities. And I think I think Zach Jackson in his story today noted about all the quarterbacks the Browns are going to be facing this year, the big name quarterbacks that are on the schedule that I think maybe when you look back at last year's, you kind of avoided some of them in a way that it was a little bit more favorable to you. But honestly, and this is like the boring answer, the most important thing that I'm looking for on this schedule is the bye week, because you've expanded the schedule to 17 games. The placement of that bye week is ultimately so much more important than it used to be. I mean, look at what happened to the Steelers last year with having to take that really early bye week in their season, and it just kind of screwed things up the rest of the way, and it seemed like they ran out of steam. And I think that you want and look at what the Browns did after their bye week, right at the mid-season point, just kind of turning things around on offense. That the placement of that has gotten even more important now that the season has expanded to 17 games. So that to me is going to be one of the more important things to look at and how the schedule breaks down. But it's a fun one. I mean, you've got the NFC North, you've got the Cardinals involved as well, and the AFC West. I mean, this is going to be I think it's a tougher schedule. You get the NFC East out of there, it's going to be tougher. So I think that it'll be interesting to see which ones get spotlighted by the networks, because honestly, it'd be good enough TV to just spotlight the Browns in-game division games. I mean, those are going to be big games to watch as well. So I'm excited. It'll be good to finally put some weeks next to these games, and honestly, compared to last year, the knowing that these games are going to be happening and when they're going to happen in all likelihood. I mean, that was the uncertainty that came with that schedule release last year.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, things are so different now than they were then. You mentioned that bye week. Look, you want the best example of that, certainly Tampa Bay. I mean, they got that bye week and it changed everything for them, and they became the hottest team in football and had that run that they had all the way to the Super Bowl. We did some power rankings and stuff, and we've looked at stuff this week, and I'll get you out of here on this one, Gribbs. Just from a roster standpoint, I mean, I feel very confident in saying this is a top 5 roster in the NFL. Are you comfortable with that? With me saying that, and do you believe that as well?
Yeah, I think I'm there, and I think that it's just a matter of the key for the Browns is one is you have to maintain at least what what was going on offensively last year, because I think that the offense was clicking in a way that second half of the season that you just want to be able to maintain throughout the season. Because if that holds steady, you've got a chance every week. And I think that the improvements on defense should only help. And it's just a matter of, in the NFL, with the way things are going, it's not like a ton of teams are playing great defense right now. In the NFL, if you can just get to a level where you are among the better teams defensively, then you're in really good shape, because you mix this offense with a defense that is a solidly in the top half of the league. I mean, that's what gets you back in the playoffs. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. And I think that, as the Browns showed last year, once they got in, they're a tough out. That comes down to coaching, preparedness, and now you've got a Browns roster where all these guys now have 2 playoff games under their belts, and now this is when you start having bigger goals than just getting into the playoffs.
Absolutely so. Gribbs, great stuff as always, buddy. Talk to you again soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon, Bo.
All right, that's our buddy Sir Andrew Gribble joining us, senior staff writer at clevelandbrowns.com. Coming up next, the NFL schedule gets released. NFL.com will debate who will kick off the season, who will be the opponent for Tampa Bay, plus Todd McShay with the 2022 mock draft. It's certainly a shot in the dark, but what is interesting is the order of picks. So we will go over that, and you'll hear from Greg Newsome on Good Morning Football coming up in about 15 minutes. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
You are up.
If your game plan for the season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/GoBrowns today. We are less than a week until the NFL schedule gets released. NFL.com debated which game would kick off the season. So certainly it will be Tampa Bay. I mean, that's a lock that they will kick it off. They will have that Thursday night gig. The question would be, who is the opponent? So here are the options for them. They play, obviously, divisionally, Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina. Dallas, well, you have it. It's Dallas. I mean, that's how you kick it off,
I got to
wouldn't you?
think, but I don't know.
Giants, Buffalo, Miami, and the Bears. You can't risk it on Fields. I mean, they play New England, but it's in New England.
Yeah.
And so that's Sunday Night Football. Feels like that's a lock.
Do you go Buffalo? That's a lot riding on
could.
week 1.
Yeah, you could. My hunch says it would be Dallas, that you kick them off with Dallas. I mean, the return of Dak Prescott, Cowboys, Thursday Night Football. If NBC has – that's still an NBC game, isn't it? They still have that first Thursday night? Yeah. I think Kansas City is going to be probably Sunday Night Football will be Kansas City.
Yeah.
So you'd have to see what their matchups could be. I think it's possible that we play the Sunday CBS or Fox 4:15 national game of the week. I think that's very much in play for us. I could see us being the Monday nighter, the 7 o'clock Monday nighter.
I was when I heard you ask Gribble, I think there's going to be a decent number of prime times. If I had to guess, I would say 4. But I think there's going to be a lot of 4 o'clocks. I think there's going to be a lot of 4:30s. And it's
for sure. I mean, we had that in that's what I was saying. Like we had that in 19.
Yeah.
When we didn't win, coming off of winning 12 games.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
so I mean, you could just look at the opponents. Like either the Baltimore or Pittsburgh game. Probably one Baltimore game, one Pittsburgh game is going to be prime time each. Monday night, Sunday night. One of them will be, or Thursday night. Right? So then you're talking about Denver, the Raiders. Those are 1 o'clock games. The Bears is a 1 o'clock game. Detroit's a 1 o'clock game. Houston's going to be dreadful. That's a 1 o'clock game. At Green Bay, if Rodgers, that's Sunday Night Football. Browns and Packers at Lambeau. I mean, that one's in prime time. When's the last time that game happened? They would have that look to it. I mean, that seems like Sunday Night Football. Chiefs at Browns at Chiefs seems like the 4:15.
Yeah, that's a Nance Romo. I don't see CBS giving that game up.
No, I don't think they will either. I mean, that seems like Nance Romo. Us at the Chargers is interesting. There's some juice for that game. Us at the Vikings, nah. Pat at New England, potentially, depending on what New England is this year. And then Arizona. I mean, that Arizona would have the potential to be for sure. It just depends on. To me, you're not going to put Arizona when the schedule comes out. I'd be shocked if Arizona's a prime timer, just because you're betting on, that you both want to be good.
I'm going to throw these wrinkles into the schedule for 2021.
Give them to me.
Thanksgiving night, little AFC North battle, maybe.
Sure. Yep, us and the Ravens, us and the Steelers, either one.
I mean, think about Baltimore and Pittsburgh had that locked down for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Sizzles, Baltimore and Browns, Thanksgiving night.
I think that's in play.
The NFL is going to air 2 games on Christmas Day this year. Not ideal. Not rooting for that. Really hoping that's not the case.
I mean, for everybody in the building, I hope that that's not the case. I hope that we don't have. I mean, I know that you'd love the showcase, but I just think that stinks. I think that stinks.
Having had to cover some Cavs games during the LeBron era on Christmas, it's not fun. There's nothing fun about that. But I just the NFL is going to have, I think, at least 2, if not 3 games going up at head-to-head against the NBA on Christmas Day, because that would normally be their Week 16 schedule, and it would, they've always in the past they've had the NFL Network. It's that Saturday triple header, and
sure.
I know there's 2. There could be 3 on Christmas Day. Now, that would just suck. Because then you're talking, God forbid you're on the road. Then we're traveling on Christmas Eve. And then we're not home Christmas Day. and it's not like you're going to get a breather, because then at that point, you've got 1 week to go till playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope not. It would be nice if that was left alone. I know. I mean, the NBA is I guess from the NFL's perspective, you don't want to just cede that, that territory to the NBA, but the NBA's kind of had it for a while. And obviously you'll trump them. If you decide to play games, you'll trump anything that they're doing. But, yeah, I hope not. I hope we're not on. I don't. The Thanksgiving, I don't like either one of them. I hope we can avoid Thanksgiving, and I wouldn't mind the Thanksgiving, the game. Maybe what about us against the Lions? Where is that game? Is that here or is that there?
Here.
Oh, it's us. It's here. So that won't be that case. So it won't be. So you're going to avoid that one.
Yeah. That's unfortunately a lot of our best games are on the road. That the home game against
Green Bay,
Arizona,
Kansas City.
and then the AFC North games. I mean, Chicago and Detroit.
Chicago, Detroit, Houston.
Yeah.
Raiders come back here?
Yeah.
2 years in a row, huh?
Yeah. I mean, do any of those yeah, all the road games are all the buzz.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Kansas City, Packers, that's for those both being road games, even Chargers.
I was going to say LA. I mean, that's even going to Minnesota.
I mean, us at Green Bay, we ought to take this show on the road for that game. That'd be a fun game. That's going to be a fun game.
What if that's Sunday night to kick off the season, week 1 in Green Bay?
Well, if there's no Rodgers,
that's why.
But then you don't know what you do with it. They're going to have a trouble next week trying to decide what to do here.
Yeah, the NFL schedule, as we know, gets finalized maybe 36 hours before. They hold off as long as they can. They're really hoping whatever's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers happens in the next couple days.
Yeah, you want that sorted out for sure.
Yeah, because you're going to take games away from Green Bay from a national standpoint.
Yeah.
And you're going to give games to whoever he goes to.
Imagine if he goes to Denver. Denver now has 5 primetime games if he goes to Denver. He goes to the Raiders. They got 5 primetime games. Anywhere he would land. I mean, what if he ended up with the football team? Always put Rodgers on the football team?
Yeah.
A lot of primetime all of a sudden. So, yeah. No, and I don't know that there's going to be clarity on it by then, certainly.
No.
Going to be fun next week, though, to get a look at that thing. ESPN's Todd McShay with the 2022 mock draft, which is basically just for conversation and some names in there. In terms of who would be mocked to us, it's pretty irrelevant. But what is relevant is he has us picking 27th, which has us one spot below where we picked this year, so that's positive. The teams that he would theoretically have having a better record than us are only limited to the Rams, the Packers, Buffalo, Tampa, and Kansas City. So he has us third in the AFC behind Buffalo and Kansas City, which I think is fair. I think the one that kind of is the attention grabber, obviously, is the Rams and the Packers. Obviously, he's betting on Rodgers being with Green Bay, so that's safe. But again, and I've seen this, there's a lot of belief in the Rams. And I tend to agree with some of it. I mean, they've won. The big difference between McVay and even Kyle is the Rams won while they were rebuilding with McVay. They don't have a losing record with him. So now all of a sudden you have that quarterback. They got Tutu Atwell in the draft. They got Deshaun Jackson. Now they have burners, and they got a guy with a cannon attached to his right shoulder at quarterback who can stretch the field. It will open up for Cam Akers. It will open up what they can do offensively to allow for, Woods and Kupp to operate underneath. So I think the Rams are a really tricky team. I think the NFC is going to be pretty wild. I do, because I don't know what's happening. San Francisco is going to be interesting. Seattle's going to be interesting. The NFC South, no Breeze down there anymore. All those weapons for Matt Ryan. I think the NFC is going to be very interesting. And if Rodgers leaves the Packers, God forbid it's not to the AFC.
Yeah. No. If Rodgers leaves the Packers, period, is the NFC North the worst division in the NFL?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, by a pretty wide margin, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's the worst in the NFL by a pretty wide margin if he's not there, because you're talking about rookie quarterback in Chicago, that Detroit situation. You hope Spielman and those guys, just because that they've been through so much, you hope Spielman and those guys get it going, but they're a long ways off. Don't have a whole lot from a skill position standpoint. Minnesota kind of is what it is. Yeah, so it's Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay the last couple of years has been in large part to that division, thanks to that division, kind of the advantage that the Patriots had all those years in New England. You know, they could just bully the other teams in the division and build their record off of that. So, but I think that's fair. 27, it's about right.
Yeah.
I didn't even look. Who did he have us picking?
You know what? I didn't even. I don't
It's
know. I
such a
saw
crapshoot.
Olave going 12th to the Falcons. That was the first Buckeye off the board. He had 2 or 3 Buckeyes going in round 1.
My hunch would be that Garrett Wilson ends up going ahead of Olave, the other receiver at Ohio State. That would be my hunch that he
Really?
would go first.
I love Olave.
Yeah.
I
Zach-
love everything about that.
Yeah, they're both
kid.
great. Really smooth. They're both really, really smooth. I think they'll have 2 number 1 receivers next year. Zach Harrison from Ohio State's got a chance. Yeah, interesting. Very good stuff. Well, luckily we don't have to worry about that right now. That's a long ways
Yeah,
off.
that's it. I mean, every analyst is being asked to put out a 2022 mock, which is just comical.
Yeah.
But, you know, he made it a point to say the biggest challenge wasn't picking players. It was who's going to pick where. So, you know, the fact that he likes us as one of the top 5 or 6 teams, I like that to go.
I think it's just accepted now. I mean, that's just what the roster is it's that good. So it's, you know, that's where we should be. We should be right there. You want to put Buffalo ahead of us, I guess that's fine. I like our roster better than theirs, but I also understand people that have them ahead of us. It's fine. They've proven more than we have to this point. But we're right there from a roster standpoint. Our first-round pick this year, Greg Newsome, was on Good Morning Football this morning. We will have that for you coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are down.
Thursday with $2 drafts and Coca-Cola soft drinks. Plus, it's Frontline Worker Appreciation Night. Celebrate with those who sacrificed so much for us during the past year at the ballpark. Fireworks tomorrow and Saturday. Bring mom to the ballpark on Sunday. Advanced seats start at just $5. Due to capacity restrictions, seats are limited. For more information, call 855-97-QUACK or buy tickets online at AkronRubberDucks.com. Akron Rubber Ducks Baseball. Affordable family fun.
Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
You are up.
Imagine kicking back in the evenings in your very own hot tub. Now imagine actually being able to afford one. Northeast Factory Direct buys hot tubs by the truckload. You get a 6-person hot tub with a lounger and the lights and still afford your summer activities. You think about owning a hot tub would be a pain? Well, at Northeast Factory Direct, hot tubs come with exclusive hard top covers. You don't have to worry about safety or convenience. I was out there. I saw how these things work. They are awesome. Plus, you're going to get a lifetime warranty on that cover. You're looking for a way to stay active? They have these amazing swim spas. It's like a hot tub, but you can adjust the jets to give you a gentle current. You can use them year-round. I recommend that you do. See for yourself. West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakeland Boulevard in Euclid, Freeway Drive in Macedonia, or shop online anytime at NortheastFactoryDirect.com. Before we get to the Newsome interview, we can tell you that Todd McShay in his 2022 mock draft, which I'm sure he was thrilled to do, as is taking defensive end Drake Jackson out of USC at pick number 27. That it really is impossible to try to do that. And of course, we will only hold him to everything he said. We'll fact check.
I've already, you and I were talking in break. I said I'm going to look up his mock last year after the 2021 was over for 2021. We'll have some fun on Friday with it. We'll dissect it. It'll be great. He'll love it.
I wonder what I'm really interested in is like the projected order of finish versus the reality, because more so than even. And then the other thing would be like quarterbacks. I think is fascinating. Like in this one in 2022 that he has Desmond Ridder, the quarterback out of Cincinnati, who's a really nice player. He has him going in the middle of the first round at quarterback to Pittsburgh, one spot after Malik Willis, who's a quarterback at Liberty who transferred from Auburn, goes to the football team. He's got Sevyn Banks, the corner out of Ohio State, going 14. Sevyn Banks has got to see the field at Ohio State. And so these are fun, though, so God bless him on that. One thing that we don't have to worry about is the draft anymore this year because Andrew Berry knocked it out of the park, and it started with Greg Newsome falling to us at 26. What a gift that was. Here is Greg Newsome from Good Morning Football this morning.
With the 20
You're down.
pick in the first round, one word, and his life was changed forever. Cleveland! He's one of 2 Northwestern players drafted in the first round of this year's NFL draft, and he's ready to bring the Dog Pound everything that he's got. Joining us right now, let's welcome Browns' new cornerback, Greg Newsome.
What's up, Greg?
The second. What's up, Greg?
What's going on?
I'm chilling, man. We appreciate you joining us. Now, tell us about your draft day experience. What was that day like leading up to it, during, and after you got that call from the Browns?
Yeah, man. So that morning of draft day, I got me a lift in. I had to get some of those nerves out and things like that. But leading up to the draft pick, I was expected to go a little bit earlier. So I was kind of getting a little nervous sitting there for a minute, honestly. But, when I heard my name go to the Cleveland Browns, man, I was so excited and so ready to be a part of a franchise like that.
Congratulations. Sounds like you already have a bit of a chip on your shoulder that will do you well in the NFL. And you've been to Cleveland. You were there to tour the Browns facility. You met some staff members, I'm sure. Tell us what the highlights of your trip were.
Yeah, it was amazing, honestly. Just meeting the coaches was probably the highlight of my, journey, just because for the last 2 to 3 months, we've been on Zoom meeting the coaches, but to get to see them face to face and just talk ball with them a little bit was just amazing. And just to see the characters of these coaches, kind of reminds me of my coaches here at Northwestern. So I felt at home already when I went to Cleveland, and also just going to the Cavaliers game, them showing me so much love there. It was just an amazing trip.
We love Coach Fitz. We've always championed him for a long time, just like we love your new coach, Coach Stefanski. Tell us this, Greg. There's a lot of Browns fans watching. There's also a lot of Steelers fans and Ravens fans and Bengals fans. What are the Browns getting in you? What are you going to bring year one to the field?
Yeah, I'm going to bring, everything I got. I'm going to do whatever it takes, for the team to win, whether I need to play 100 reps on special teams, whether I need to start at corner, like whatever the coach needs me to do, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So, I can promise Browns fans that they will get everything out of me year one.
I love that.
Greg, I love that too. I think we all do. That's the type of thing we like hearing from any draft pick, let alone first-round picks. We took a look through your Twitter feed, and it was filled with all of these great messages congratulating your Northwestern teammates who were drafted. This has been some class for Northwestern, and you guys gave Chase Young in Ohio State everything he could handle 2 years ago. You had this great year this year. Do you believe that this draft class is going to change the way people look at Northwestern Wildcat football?
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's finally showing people, that you can get a top 10 academic degree and also, get your goals in the NFL. So I hope now recruits know, you don't have to go to these big powerhouses, that produce NFL talent. At Northwestern, you can get both the best worlds here. So, I think that now I think people are starting to realize finally that, we're not just smart guys at Northwestern. We're smart and we also can play football.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Now, speaking of Northwestern, when we were discussing the winners and losers of the draft, we called Northwestern's winners. As we all mentioned and you mentioned, what a significant role Coach Pat Fitzgerald has played in preparing you guys for the draft. So how much credit do you give Coach Fitzgerald and also that staff for turning this program around?
Yeah, I give them a ton of credit. They stick to the guys they recruit. They recruit specific guys to, be locker room guys and be guys that they know are going to work hard. So, I give those guys a lot of credit for bringing in the right people. That's the big thing in the football world, is just bringing in the right people who are going to go to work every single day, who aren't selfish guys. So, I give them a ton of credit for picking the right recruits. And I just hope now that, some of the bigger recruits know that they can go to a school like Northwestern and still get what they want to get to.
Now, the draft class for the Browns really shows, it's obvious that this team wants defense to lead the way. They invested and invested and invested. So how do you feel like you'll fit into this Browns squad? And what are you bringing to the locker room? A lot of Browns fans watch this show.
Yeah, first, the way I'm going to fit into the defense is just, I'm a versatile player. That's what I pride myself on being. So, I can do it all on the field, whether that's play nickel, play corner, if I need to play a little safety, and I can play all coverages to a very elite level. So I'm going to bring a lot of versatility to that defense. And then just to that locker room in general, I'm a cool guy to be around, and I'm an energetic guy, and I'm a very outgoing guy as well. So I'm definitely going to bring a great personality. I'm going to be ready to compete every single day and just try to be a guy who bridges the locker room together.
30.
Great, man. You are an absolute baller, great personality, great mindset. Greg, you're going to have one hell of a rookie year. And you know what? This Brown defense, they are stout and talented. They are about to get gruesome with Newsome, because this year, y'all going to do something. Hey, thank you for joining us, man.
Appreciate you guys.
You like that one, huh? Go ahead and keep it. Go ahead and keep that one. That's for you.
Greg meet Nate, Nate meet Greg. We love it.
When Nate was here, did you know that he would have this type of second act?
I can remember the first time we interviewed him. I was still at ESPN, and we were doing a Saturday show. And they said, hey, we're going to get you Nate Burleson today. At the radio row,
Sure.
every flagship station's out there every day. They said, today you're going to get Burleson. Okay, great. It's a name. It's a guy. We like him a lot.
Yeah.
He came on, and we were supposed to be off the air at like 3 o'clock. We went till 3:15. He didn't want to leave. He was like, what else you want to talk about? What do you want to ask? Like, I'll answer anything you got. And like, we got done, and I'm like, please make the team. And sure enough, he was cut like a week later in training camp, final cuts. But it was one of those. He's one of those guys where he walks away and you just look at everybody and you go, yeah, we could put him on every week and be totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could hold his own. Yeah. He was entertaining. He was informative. You learned something. He was really, really good.
Yeah, and he is. I saw him hosting Extra over the weekend. He's doing that now. I mean, he's just so versatile, can do so many things. And really, that show allows for that because they all get to just breathe, and then their full personalities come out, and you've seen all of them branch out into other things. Kay's doing stuff.
She's doing stuff
obviously
with people,
Kyle does the
I
stuff
think,
with Ringer.
or ET or something like that.
Yeah.
You wonder how long
she does. I think I know she does both.
You wonder how long they can keep the band together.
Well, I mean, the NFL's got the pockets. If they want to keep the band, they can keep the band. So it's, and it's honestly everything that they try to do. I mean, ESPN has been trying to duplicate what they do across their platform for years, going back to Cold Pizza launch. All of that is to try to create that type of thing, a true sports morning show. But you can try, and you know this as being a program director, Gibby, and what you do now with the network. Like, you can try all you want, but you can't fake chemistry. Like, you either have people who genuinely like each other who can put on a good show, or you don't, and you can't force it.
Yep.
And they just seem to genuinely like each other.
Yeah. No, and there is. I mean, they all get along. They hang out together. Yeah, there's, everybody plays real nice, and that's half the battle right there.
Yeah. Yeah, good job out of Greg on that interview as well. Excited to get him in here and see what he's all about. Still so much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You're down.
Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
Got about 2.5. You are up.
All right, coming up Friday on the program, the Hoff joins the show, plus our linebacker coach Jason Tarver. Well, he's going to have a lot to say. That'll be a fun one to listen to Coach Tarver talk about his room and what's in that. And, of course, it is always good when the Hoff is on the program. We've got to pay some respect to Miss Allie Raymond, who every time – she's one of the people in the building that I miss so much not being there for 60 weeks now. But one of those people that when you saw, you just smiled. You couldn't help but smile. And she was our head of social media for 5 years and just absolutely crushed it. And she's moving back home to California, and she will be missed tremendously. But just one of those people, Gibby, that you saw her and you smiled. You couldn't help.
Yeah, a lot of all those player videos and things behind the scenes and shout-outs and the whole Twitter, taking questions from fans. I mean, she spearheaded a lot of that.
Yeah. Such good times with her at the Combine. Great people.
Oh.
Just great people.
I remember a night out with her, Nick Shook, and I can tell you it was quality. It was at the Combine. So
it's a quality time, certainly.
Yeah.
Allie, all the best to you. We love you here, certainly, and you will be missed very, very tremendously. Big program tomorrow. As I mentioned, Joe Thomas on, Jason Tarver as well, our linebacker coach. You have that to look forward to the week in a little bit of style. The next level is coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys are
Hi, buddy.
You've been listening.